Welcome to Art Talks, Art Matters. I'm your host, Jerome Meadows, founder and director of Indigo Sky Community Gallery here in Savannah, Georgia. This program showcases Savannah's expansive art scene of visual, literary, theatrical, and musical formats for your discovery and enjoyment. Art Talks, Art Matters gets to the heart of the art with the individuals and organizations that create it, perform it, curate, and collect it. Our guests will present and discuss how the arts can enrich all of us in surprising and countless ways. Yes, we're very happy to have as our guest for this episode, Mr. Don Kole, collector and founder of the Savannah Museum of African Art, and Ms. Billie Stultz, curator of the collection. So delighted to have you both here.
Thank you.
Mr. Kole, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Such a massive and impressive collection. How did you and when did you get started putting this together?
Well, I got started because my wife and I went to Central America, fell in love with the art of Guatemala, Mexico, and surrounding countries, and started collecting primitive masks. They were very colorful, very spiritual, very historical, and we were able to buy them for a very small price and came back to Savannah, and a year or two later took our two young children back to Guatemala and bought more masks and distributed them to friends. And one year my wife and I were in Washington. She was doing some research at the National Archives. I was wandering around, came across a shop that had one or two pieces of African art, and took one look at it, and it was love at first sight.
And that was Washington, D.C.
Right.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is that my wife, while walking around in Savannah one day, came to a shop that was selling Civil War memorabilia, but found in that shop 3 or 4 more pieces of African art, gave them to me, and so any responsibility for collecting the art, it belongs to my wife. She encouraged me, and of course she thinks I've gone a little crazy, but that's fine.
Well, that's another story.
Right, but that was 30 years ago, and ever since then it's been a labor of love. I'm not an academic, I'm a collector, but I think I've got enough of an eye to know some of the good things from the bad, and we have limited ourselves to West Africa and some of Central part of West Africa.
Okay. Okay.
And we're talking about approximately 300 tribes in about 10 or 12 different countries. So there's an awful lot you have to learn just to collect things in a organized manner.
Okay. Yeah. So there is a method to your madness.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And obviously, with such a large collection of work, you were in need of some help. And that's where Billie Stultz comes into the picture.
Right. It got to the point where I was trying to catalog it myself, and I realized that I was doing a rather poor job, and I just needed some organized help. I appealed to a friend who's a professor at SCAD, and after a year or two, we came across Billie, and Billie has been a godsend to me and to the collection, because we know what we have, we know the number of pieces we have, and it's made what was a scattershot collection into a very organized collection, and it's deeply appreciated to have it this way.
And how long ago was that, Billie? Did you get involved?
That was about 8 to 9 months ago.
Okay. And did you know what you were in for?
Not at first. I was approached by Dr. Stephen Wagner, one of my professors at SCAD, and he knew that I was one of the few art history majors interested in African art.
Okay.
So he approached me with this opportunity, and he just explained to me that Mr. Kole had a very large collection. I was not aware until I visited the vastness of it.
Are you at liberty to divulge how many pieces you have?
I would say, if we were to count them very carefully, somewhere between 900 and 1,000 pieces.
Amazing.
But I could be off by a little bit. But that's why we got Billie, and Billie is cataloging it, and not only that, but putting it into programs on the internet. So it's going to be available not just to myself, but for instance, I have a lot of friends who are collectors. After a while, you have a network of collectors.
Sure.
we can exchange views on each piece individually. It's a wonderful way to spend time, and at my stage in life, I can spend a lot of time with it.
Yeah.
And I do.
Excellent. That's interesting. How many people would you say are in the network of collectors that you're?
Well, I deal with 3 other collectors, and my collection is by far the smallest.
Really?
One gentleman's got about 1,600 pieces, another one's got over 2,000 pieces.
My goodness.
One man is building a big barn on his property to put his collection in. So, you know, once you get the collecting bug, whether it's African art or stamps or Civil War memorabilia, you can go crazy.
And are these collections anywhere near Savannah, or you pretty much have the
Atlanta,
monopoly here?
Atlanta and Nashville.
Oh, okay. So they're in the southeast.
Right. We get together once or twice a year and talk things over, and we exchange more information on the internet. African art, especially in Europe, it's a major art component. Not near as much in the United States, although in the United States you go to the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and there's a whole wing, and you go to Dallas or you go to Atlanta, each of the major museums have collections of African art.
So do the two of you ever discuss pieces that you feel you have yet to, that are missing from your collection, that you sort of are on the lookout for?
Well, it's more that the people that I deal with, they know enough about my collection to bring pieces they think I'd be interested in. So I depend very much on the person who's a dealer, and they'll bring pieces, and he'll bring his panel truck up in front of the museum, and he'll spread a dozen pieces out on the sidewalk.
Really?
And that's how we do it, and then we talk about the pieces. So
it's a public process.
Oh yes, very much so. In the days before we had the museum, we used to have it in the parking lot next to my office, and you stand out there when it's August and it's 100 degrees and you're talking about African artists. You've got to have a love of it to do it.
Interesting, very interesting. Tell us a little bit about these dealers. I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, the dealers, the ones I'm dealing with right now, live in Atlanta or outside of New York City.
Okay.
And they are American citizens, but have relatives in various parts of West Africa. And sometimes they'll travel to West Africa and bring back pieces, but more importantly, the people of West Africa will, for instance, one gentleman will have a collection of 17 pieces. He was an older man, and he wanted to sell them to get some money. And so he sent the whole 17 pieces to the man I deal with, who brought them to Savannah, said, we got to sell them as one collection. And after dealing with him for several hours on it, I did buy it. And trying to keep the collection together, because the collection, each piece feeds on another piece.
Sure.
And but generally speaking, the people of West Africa who produce and sell the art, it's usually a need, because the economics of West Africa is pretty sad.
Yeah.
And they need currency.
Well, I know that that you're going to have to leave us halfway through the program, so I did want to get you a little bit of information about, was it your idea from the very beginning to form this as a museum? And if not, when did that idea come up? And give us a little bit of information about that.
Well, the way it came up is when I started collecting it, I was just doing it for myself.
Sure.
And then people started hearing about it, saying, well, we want to see your collection. One of the very first persons that really sort of pushed me a little was W.W. Law, who I think most people in Savannah know.
Absolutely,
W.W.
yeah.
Well, he used to come. I had a lot in my office. He just would come into the office and say, Kole, I want to see what you got today. and I would show him my collection, and he would send a friend in to see it. And before I know it, I had a lot of different people coming in, and I realized that I couldn't have an office environment and have a collection with people coming back and forth. So that's when I started to put it in one place.
Okay.
And we've done a lot of different things with the collection, mainly as fundraisers for various organizations. We've had a lot of fundraisers over there.
Excellent.
For instance, we just did one for the Friends of Ben Tucker.
Excellent, excellent. And so is the museum officially open at this point, or?
No, it's officially open when Billy gets it open.
That puts a little pressure on you.
A little bit.
Any projection as to when that will be?
Well, we're going to start out with opening it just a couple days a week, just as to get our feet wet and
Okay.
see the community reaction to it before we decide to open up for the weekdays.
Okay.
And I'm projecting to have everything set up by hopefully the first of the year. That's my projection for it.
This is November.
Yes, yes.
And will there be a charge? Will it be free to the
No,
public? or-
this will be free to the public, and we're going to try mainly to get public school children to come. We're going to really, that's what we want.
Why that focus?
Because children don't realize what their cultural heritage is from the old country. And that old, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white or any other color. Once you get to the United States, we sort of forget about what the history and what the culture is of the old country.
The old melting pot.
The old melting pot, right. And African art is it has so much to it that is so complex, and there's the spirituality of it and the craftsmanship of it it's wonderful art. And when the kids, we have had a lot of different school children coming in already, and they just are in awe of what they see.
Excellent.
And they had no, watching American television, you don't learn anything. This is a learning experience.
Right.
And the adults like it too. We recently had a group of 12 women who are part of a social club, and they went in there, and I couldn't get them out of the building. They got so
I
excited
know that
about
experience. Fantastic. Well, we're going to take a break. Again, thank you so much for being here, and we could talk about this a lot longer. But again, I want to thank you, and we'll be back in a moment with Billie.
For more information on the Savannah Museum of African Art, visit facebook.com/Savannah Museum of African Art or email bmstultz.savafricanart@gmail.com or call 912-421-8168.
Welcome back. We're happy to have our guest, Billie Stultz, who is the curator of the collection at the Savannah Museum of African Art. And I wanted to get into some of the nitty-gritty on the collection with you. If you could tell us a little bit about this map.
Sure. So this map is placed as soon as you walk into the museum to kind of ground the visitor in where Mr. Kole's collection, the scope of its locations, and where the objects come from. It mostly spans throughout West Africa and then dips into Central Africa a little bit. But that's the main area of his focus. So it's far west as Mali, and then it kind of loops down into Cameroon and then east into the Congo.
Okay. It seems like a very vast area.
It is very vast. The majority of them come from specifically West Africa and the Congo.
Okay, excellent. Okay, if we have the next image, I was particularly struck by this room, which you led us into. I should let the audience know that we sort of put you on the spot and asked, out of a collection of well over 900 pieces, if you could show us about 4 or 5 that you wanted to showcase. And it was in this room that one of those pieces was found. If you can tell us a little bit about just the room in general, and then we can go to the specific piece.
So this room in general, Mr. Kole had the idea of this being a room full of terracotta, whether it be terracotta objects, as in vessels or statues. The majority of this room holds vessels used for a range of funerary purposes, to hold ashes, as well as food and drink.
Okay, so all functional.
All functions, yes.
And at the end of the room, it looks like there are doors.
Yes. Those are granary doors from the Dogon in Mali, and they would have been mounted onto buildings to just hold the harvest. So, again, granary doors are a lot of the objects are very self-explanatory when it comes to it, but the motif on them, the motifs each has a significance for the community, whether it be spiritual or to serve a purpose.
Okay. If we got the next image, There you are explaining the door to the left as one of your favorites.
Yes, this is a door. I'm not 100% certain the building it comes off of,
Okay.
but it is a Yoruba door from Nigeria. And within the Yoruba, there is, I wouldn't call it a religion, but it is their spiritual beliefs.
Okay.
So within that spiritual beliefs, there are deities, or orisha, as they call
Sure.
them. And so each orisha is given a color, a set of colors, as well as numbers and symbology. So within this door, feel very confident saying it's for the orisha Yemaya, who is the orisha of motherhood and maternity and protection. There is pigment on it, indigo, as well as natural white clay dye. So that's where the pigments come from. Now, what I was referring back to what I was mentioning earlier with the orisha having specific colors attributed to them, Yemaya's colors are blue and clear, or blue and white.
Okay.
So you have the colors of Yemaya represented in this door, as well as her location. Yemaya resides on the upper layer of the ocean,
Okay.
according to the beliefs. So you have wave motifs,
Okay. Interesting.
as well as imagery of children.
Okay. So everything has a specific purpose in terms of visual iconography.
Yes.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, let's go to the next image. This piece, and there's a lot of pieces here, obviously, which is just a good way of showing the context in which all of these works exist. But the large piece in the foreground.
That is an Ngungun masquerade costume. It is also from Nigeria and the Yoruba. So this would have been worn during a festival that occurs about once a year
Okay.
in honoring of the ancestors and those who've passed on before us.
Okay.
So every year a family would have, or a group would have, an Ngungun attributed to an ancestor or a deceased family member. And one of the men of the community who would be assigned to dance in this costume, specifically a member of that family, would don this costume and dance around in it. However, when they are dancing in it, they kind of go through this, I guess the best way to describe it is like a possession of the spirit. So the
Okay.
ancestor takes over their body and they repeat mannerisms that this ancestor would have had.
I see.
Each of these strips of fabric would have been attached every year. So a family would put forth a lot of money to get very nice textiles imported in to attach, to pay homage to their ancestor.
Okay. And we do have another view of this just to show its three-dimensionality and the wealth of colors and textures in these strips. They're pretty much woven strips, or?
They're strips of fabric. They can be woven textiles or textiles
Okay.
cut from a larger bolt of cloth.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, fascinating piece, and I'm glad that we have a clip of this work in motion.
Yes.
All right, so this one.
This is from the Congo, from the Kuba kingdom. So this is a Mukenga headdress, or a Mukenga mask. This is actually part of a royal trio that it is performed with. So
Okay.
this would be worn during funerary ceremonies or initiation ceremonies. Similar to the Yoruba, each piece has its own iconography and symbolism, or symbology. So if you notice the headpiece, it kind of bends over like the trunk of an elephant.
You mean piece coming off the top?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So the attached part of the head, that represents royalty and the king,
Okay.
as well as the cowrie shells. So cowrie shells are not indigenous to Africa. They come from the Indian Ocean, and they've been brought in through trade. So within these older kingdoms, they were seen as a symbol of wealth and power and currency. So the person who has the most cowrie shells is obviously the wealthiest.
Right. I'm really struck by the fact that you refer to this as a mask, and yet there doesn't seem to be any way that the wearer can see through it. So that is it a stationary thing, or is the person somehow in motion, although they can't see?
The person would be in motion. Typically, their Mukenga masks will be smaller. This was the first time I had ever seen one this large.
Okay.
So with this one, it would have been held up. The wearer would have been wearing a raffia costume to blend with the raffia beard. And then the wearer would be able to kind of see through the raffia, and it would blend with his costume.
Oh, fascinating. And there would be 3 of these together.
There would be 3. This represents the king, and there are 2 others. The Ngare Mwash, which represents the queen, or the king's wife, also his sister.
Same person.
Well, it'd be danced by 3 men within the community.
Oh,
but
okay. So even those representing a female is being danced by a male.
Typically, in any masquerade situation, it'll be a man behind the costume, whether it be a female character or not.
Okay.
And then the 3rd mask is called Boom, and he represents kind of the common man. He's constantly at odds with Mukenga and trying to kind of steal away Ngare Mwash. So it's kind of like a little love triangle going on.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, and we've got one more that I'm really excited about looking at and showing to our audience. Who is this guy?
So this is an Nkisi Nkonde. This comes from the Congo, from various communities. So with an Nkisi Nkonde, it serves as a spiritual object for the community. You would have an Nganga, who we would consider to be like a shaman or a high priest within the community that interprets the will of the Nkisi. So one thing you notice about it is it's covered in nails.
Yes.
And that is a very important part of the Nkisi Nkonde, is because it serves as a spiritual protector or combatant for the community. The nails or strips of iron that are driven into the object's body, they really kind of awaken the spirit to serve its purpose and serve the community spiritually. Now, the Nganga would be the one to drive the metal into the object.
Oh, so if I had an issue, I would not drive the nail in. I would come and present my case
to the Nganga, and then he would
fascinating.
present the case to the Nkisi and then proceed to drive the piece of iron or metal into its body.
Amazing, amazing.
Now, what gives it power is, if you notice its stomach, it kind of has a reflective surface. Inside of its stomach are packed with medicinal herbs, as well as, within this one's case, there are 4 pouches on its back that are also packed with medicinal herbs. And this, on his stomach, he has this reflective sheet of glass, as well as over his eyes, to both attract spirits and repel spirits, to scare them off.
There's, I think when we were looking at this in the museum itself, there's an interesting characterization of this, of the face of this person, this entity, almost European.
Kind of, and that could be an influence, like with the conical shape of the hat, as well as the beard motif or mustache motif. That could be a reference to colonialization.
Remarkable, and this is just not even the tip of the iceberg.
No, these are just
in terms of the collection.
just a few selections.
Yeah. Okay. So, just briefly, what have you gained through working with this collection, as a professional, on a personal level?
Well, as a professional, it's given me experience as a curator, because that's the career that I eventually want to get into and continue on.
Sure.
Personally, I've always been interested in African art, more so of Egyptian art, but this has kind of opened the doors, especially educationally, for myself, as well as providing an opportunity to educate others.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to the opening of the museum in January, projected, hopefully.
Yes.
And your continued involvement with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
And thank you for watching Art Talks, Art Matters. We look forward to seeing you again.
For more information on the Savannah Museum of African Art, visit facebook.com/Savannah Museum of African Art or email bmstultz.savafricanart@gmail.com or call 912-421 8168.